I'm the mom of Trey, 15. I became passionate about seeking out best practices both medically and educationally for children with autism after a great deal of trial and error with unsuccessful treatment plans and medications. I founded Vision's Autism Center in 2007, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing support and services to families with autism. In 2008, we started exploring hyperbaric oxygen therapy for Trey. We did our first 40 sessions, I guess, in 2009, and ever since the very first treatment, he's had no apparent seizure activity. So I became passionate about seeking hyperbarics in our area, and then coordinated with Dr. Daniel Cow at Cool Springs Family Medicine, where now we have a Fortis 420 chamber. I told Christy today that it was the baby child of the chamber here. The chamber here is my chamber's Big Daddy, and you'll see what we call Big Sully. We call that our hyperbaric chamber at Cool Springs Family Medicine. So you'll see that in the slide presentation. So obviously my most important job is mom to Trey. So there he is, cutie patootie. He loves the ocean, loves to swim, very happy. My disclosure is I'm not a physician. I'm a mom who researched, learned, and had a great deal of experience doing some good things and then some wrong things. I should say probably a lot of wrong things. I'm passionate about helping parents avoid going through what we went through and helping their children far earlier than I was able to help mine with hopefully an even better outcome. I'm outspoken and will tell you my opinion. I love big gatherings where people listen to me, let me tell you my opinion, and I can because I'm not paid by a pharmaceutical company or an education entity, and I'm not going to be thrown in jail, as far as I know, for telling you what my opinion to be the truth, or what my opinion is of the truth. And I talk a lot, so that works well for me. My purpose here tonight is help you help your children, whether it's from sharing my family story or for some of the information that you hear. I want you to become your child's best advocate and not be at the mercy of the information coming out of anyone else. Our story, and I will try to run through this briefly, you can read it. Trey suffered a cerebral infarct at birth. He seemingly developed normally until about 18 months. He then started exhibiting classical signs of autism. Leading neurologist at Le Bonheur pretty much rejected the premise that he was autistic paired with his birth trauma. He couldn't imagine that the two would coincide. A concept that is just laughable to me at this point. He was wrong, obviously. Remember, this was in 1996 when most people's association was with Rain Man, and I'm not sure the medical community was not that far behind as well. He was diagnosed at the age of 20 months with PDD-NOS. At this point, and following the diagnosis, he battled a whole host of severe autistic symptoms, including intermittent seizure activity. We were put on every drug used at the time to squash his symptoms, such as ADHD medications, SSRIs, antipsychotics, and seizure medications. It didn't take long for me to figure out that the medications that he was being put on was to help me more than for him. It was to help me deal with the autism and not him. It didn't do him any favors. It just made him worse. Trey's symptoms, lack of receptive language, lack of expressive language. He had the belly bloat, the constipation, dark under eye circles, seizure activity, obsessive compulsive disorder, self-stimulatory behavior, and aggression. He was talking about the aggression, he was in the top 5 priority in Williamson County schools on their behavior list, their behavior bad kid list, basically. Some days he would have as many as 100 to 125 aggressive acts in one school day. I kept the local flower shop afloat by buying flowers for all the people he drew blood on, all his victims. Today, Trey is quite infamous in Williamson County. Everybody that knew him then now asks, what did you do? So this is what we did. Convinced that indeed it was not okay for my son to have one bowel movement a week, and knowing that the meds that I was giving him was not helping, I started researching on my own the Defeat Autism Now protocol, the DAN protocol. We found Dr. Kevin Meridian in the very beginning. He's in Memphis at the Stone Institute for Health, and he had studied the DAN protocol and was treating some children on the autism spectrum at that time. And we started the gluten casein-free diet first, along with methyl B12. I remember this day pretty clearly because Trey was very irritated and aggressive, and just, you know, he was always happy, but there was this underlying irritation that he had often. After the first methyl B12 injection, it was just almost calmed him down, as if it was like a cooling agent for his system, basically. That's kind of how I describe it. He was calmer. He just had more peace about him, if that makes sense. So my biomed journey begins. I knew we were on to something in 2003. I say we were gluten-free when gluten-free wasn't cool. Because it wasn't back then, and it wasn't easy. Initially, we started gluten casein-free. We did methyl B12 shots, and a huge one for Trey was antifungal therapy to fight gastrointestinal yeast. Trey's definitely a yeasty kid. And then behavior modification, which I'm going to talk very briefly about. Behavior therapy, ABA, consistency, consistency, consistency. If you were somebody who touched my son, you knew the plan. You were trained, and you either agreed to do it or you weren't in his presence. This is a behavior plan written directly off of a functional behavioral assessment done by trained, experienced professionals who knew autism first and behavior second. If you've got a behavioral person who doesn't know autism, you may as well send them back where they came from, because it isn't going to make any sense with your child. It was very tailored to Trey, and you know, with Visions, our nonprofit, who we send out behavioral therapists to families' homes. My thing is, there are no cookie cutter programs. Every child is different, so every child needs a different plan. This is one point, and this is going to end pretty much my discussion on behavioral therapy. You can't behavior plan away your child's pain. You cannot expect a child who is sick and who has difficulty communicating to behave, focus, if she is in pain, or he or she is in pain, much less having seizure activity. So that encompasses any kind of pain, gastrointestinal, anything. Yeah, ears, whatever it is. A lot of behavioral therapists want to behavior plan everything away. Stimming is a huge one. Our children like to stim. It's a need that they have. They are going to do it. I've heard stories of the behavioral therapist being in a house, and as soon as she won't let the child stim and is trying to reduce that behavior, as soon as she leaves, the kid gets under the bed and starts stimming away and hiding because he doesn't think it's acceptable. It can be transferred to another behavior sometimes, sometimes not. It is a need that they have. We can reduce those stims by the things that we're going to talk tonight, but it can't be behavior planned away. I don't think so. That's my opinion. Somebody might disagree. We started entrusting Trey's care to doctors specializing in autism. Dr. Cobb, Dr. Daniel Cobb, Dr. Jeff Bradstreet, Dan Rosignol. We would go on in the future to add different IV therapies, including IVIG, and add hyperbaric oxygen therapy to our regimen. I can't emphasize this enough, and this comes with a little bit of humor, but don't expect your family pediatrician to be an expert in autism. Why would you go to the dentist to have your knees checked out? I mean, it's the same thing. Every physician that I know, with the exception of one, who has a child on the spectrum, and there are quite a few out there, have become biomedically based physicians. In layman's terms, correcting problems, not just covering them up with meds. These physicians are passionate about healing our kids and have the best motivator right at home. And I put down here just with a little asterisk, the one that I do know that does have a child on the spectrum that is not into integrated medicine is very much on the spectrum himself. Good questions for a family physician that you're seeing, and you can read these off. How many children have you treated? How do you treat them, typically with what medications? What is your philosophy of autism, and where do you get your information? Oh, sorry, I misspelled that word. What do you know about gluten casein-free diet, supplementation, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and IV therapy for children with autism? Do you know Dan Rosignol? What lab work do you propose that we do, and are you a MAPS physician? MAPS is a new thing that is just created in 2012 by Dr. Dan Rosignol in conjunction with David Berger and Dr. Anja Usman. These are superstars in the world of treating autism. If you're wanting to know something about autism, reference these guys first. They know what they're doing. And it says, MAPS is a forward-thinking organization dedicated to establishing, teaching, and supporting the testing and treatment of children with autism spectrum and other related disorders.